Hey, witches, it's Wednesday. Welcome to the Witches Movie Coven. Grab your goat, grab your sword, take your shoes off because we're going to talk about Lord of the Rings tonight. The one from whatever of the rings, I'm going to pass that on to everybody else. We are doing Lord. Yeah, we've got swords. Heather is our sword girl. Jason's got his beautiful big bare feet, and I got goats. I hope we never get two goats each. I mean, more than two goats each because we've run out of hands.
I have
Um,
3.
what do you do? How do
Patty
you
did
do
tell
it?
me to take off my shoes. What was I
I did. I
supposed to
told you to
do?
take off your shoes. It's Lord of the Rings. You don't wear shoes. Speaking of Lord of the Rings, I am Patti Negri. I am one of your 5 hosts. You might know me from the Witching Hour, my regular podcast, from Ghost Adventures, from my school, University Magicus, from bathroom walls across America. Let me pass you on to some of my beautiful co-hosts. Let's start with the lovely Heather this week.
Hi, I am Heather Greene, and I am the sword bearer for the evening. And I am also a journalist covering all things occult, as well as a editor at Llewellyn Worldwide, and the author of Lights, Camera, Witchcraft. It is the critical history of witches in American cinema and television. Here it is. Oh, look at that, upside down.
Upside
There
down.
we go. And I am glad to be back. I missed last week, but I'm glad to be back with my wonderful Wednesday coven.
Yes, yes. The full crew is here today. Though we love our guests, the full crew is here today. Let's start with the girls today. Let's move over to Courtney.
That's me. I'm Courtney Buckley, ghost bait on Scared and Alone, and I made it here, and that feels like an accomplishment this week. So there we go.
Whatever works. All right. And now with his hands in pure prayer position, Richard-Lael.
I am Richard-Lael. Richard-Lael is one name, not two. If I were just Richard, I would be a. That's right. Thank you, Ms. Courtney. I am known as the gentleman psychic. I'm a psychic and a medium. I used to be a psychic and a small, but I gained some weight. Unlike all of the other psychics here in New Orleans that are all doom and gloom or love and light, I'm a happy medium. I am an artist. I do tarot. I do psychic readings. I do seances. I travel. I do a lot of things. A lot of different little things.
He does indeed. And with almost Hobbit-like hair, last and never least, Jason Mankey.
I'm not one of Heather's writers, but I am a writer at Llewellyn. My 10th book for Llewellyn will be out in May. It's called High Priest. Please read it. I spent years writing it. I also talk, and of course, I have lovely blonde hair.
Yes. Hobbit hair. Hobbit hair.
Hobbit hair. It's been called worse, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I like Hobbit hair. That's one of their strong points. Hobbit hair. So anyway, we are talking about Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, and hopefully you all saw it. You all watched it this week, and if you didn't, Richard-Lael, can you give them an unbiased synopsis of the film?
I certainly can. The film that we are talking about.
Oh, that's so bad.
I appreciate that. Kudos.
Well, see, I'm glad you liked my dad joke. So yes, it is Lord of the Rings. The film is a delightful film about a bunch of people who come out on stage and dance, only moving their feet and not their arms. I didn't quite understand why, but that was, it's Irish dancing or Celtic dancing. Is that right? Oh, no, wait. That was Lord of the Dance. That's right. So in this film was actually about, at some point, there were rings that were created and one to rule them all. And then Thanos comes along and no, that's another film too. No, I'm just kidding. Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth.
Oh, there
it is. So, in this film, it is based on the book Lord of the Rings, J.R. Tolkien, and in the film there is Middle Earth, and it sort of is like Europe 500 years ago, and we find out that sometime at the creation of Earth there were 5 rings, and one of them to rule them all. It was created by an evil villain, Soros, I think his name was. Anyway, was that not right?
No.
Close. Very,
And
very
then
close.
George Soros made the rings.
Okay, maybe not Soros, but it was. So there's a villain who had made this ring to control everybody. It gets lost, and then Bilbo Baggins in the Shire ends up with it, and then his nephew Dildo Baggins.
If you even.
I can't remember his name. Dildo Baggins inherits it. And then, of course, the wizards from Harry Potter come in and they have a fight scene with each other. And then there is Mr. Smith from the Matrix films. I think he's an elf. And then, of course, there's a golem, and the ring can only be destroyed. They're trying. The ring can only be destroyed in the fires of Mordor, and that's what I get out of it. Quest, Shire, wizards, witchcraft, witch fight, elves, spirits that chase them down. They have to go through. They go to Mordor. They throw the ring into the fires of Mordor. The world is saved.
Mount Doom.
Thank you. We left us
Mountain
speechless.
Dew. No. I don't like Mountain.
Not Mountain Dew.
Thank
Mount
you for that
Doom. Mount
thorough
Doom.
explanation of the film. But maybe there's more. Maybe there's a little bit more. Heather, would you happen to have perhaps 5 things in addition to Richard-Lael's?
I do. As always, I do. This is one of those sagas, series, films, franchises that for me to tell you 5 things, it's like when we did Star Wars, it's nearly impossible. The fandom is amazing, and everybody who loves this knows more than 5 things that you have to know about it that are fun. So I'm going to do just a little recap. It's a little different because y'all probably know a lot of the good stuff. Anyway, context, this came out in 2001. We're talking about the first film, but they went over 2001, 2, and 3. Okay, this one was released. This first one was December 19th, 2001. And it has grossed 6 million that year. It grossed about 164 million in that year. Funny enough, it was number 10 in the top grossing movies that year. It was the same year Harry Potter was released, the first film, Sorcerer's Stone. So of course that took number 1. And I thought it was really interesting to see which ones came ahead of it. It was before that we had Shrek, going from 1, Harry Potter, 2, Shrek, Monsters, Inc., Rush Hour 2, Mummy Returns, Pearl Harbor, Jurassic Park 3, Planet of the Apes, and Hannibal all came in before this movie. But this movie and the other 2 are some of the top, most popular of this type of movie and have a huge fandom beyond all of those other movies. So, of course, let me get to that. The Lord of the Rings, even though it might have not been the top grossing, maybe it was number 10 that year, The Lord of the Rings as a book series is considered one of the most sold and read books in history. It, of course, it has sold, let's see, I have the numbers here, which are fascinating. And this is number 2. Where is he here? Top grossing, upward of 600 million of all of his books. J.R.R. Tolkien, 600 million copies sold to date is approximately what they assess. That is only behind. That is up there with the Harry Potter series, The Little Prince. And then there were none by Agatha Christie, Alice in Wonderland, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and Pinocchio. Those are some of the other books that are up there in that. The other top grossing people that are above him, Danielle Steele, Shakespeare, and Agatha Christie, all have numbers higher than him. But he is up there, J.R.R. Tolkien, just with this series and The Hobbit, above everybody else. So even though this movie did not hit number 1 that year in 2001, I think J.R.R. Tolkien wins in the long run. People behind him, interesting enough, Stephen King, Dr. Seuss, Tolstoy, and C.S. Lewis, who was his good friend, are all have not sold as much as J.R.R. Tolkien with this series. And you think about how many books Dr. Seuss has out there comparatively. So that's pretty impressive in my mind. And he has other books, just so you know, and some of his son actually finished after his death. So you can look at those. So getting back to this particular movie, Peter Jackson is the director, born in 1961. He actually did the screenplays, written a lot of screenplays. He was the producer of it and director, and J.R.R. Tolkien's son disowned it, did not like it, and said he was not invited to do other parts of it. He didn't think the movies actually were true to the book series. I will leave that to other people who know better, because I have not read the books. But Peter Jackson did not care. Since then, Peter Jackson has done Heavenly Creatures, Bad Taste, King Kong, and a bunch of other stuff. I'd like to point out he also directed and wrote the screenplay for The Lovely Bones. I have not seen the movie, but I read the book, and The Lovely Bones is a fantastic book. Very, very difficult to read, but very, very powerful. I would absolutely recommend the book, and hopefully the movie was true to it, because the book was fantastic. So those are some things, but he really got his, yes, The Frighteners too. Thank you. I didn't put that one on the list. He really got his name with this series. So let me talk about other adaptations of The Lord of the Rings. Of course, Jason and I, probably being from the same generation, absolutely loved the animated version of The Lord of the Rings. There it is.
It has its charms.
Yes, 1978. We had an animated version and a follow-up, Rankin and Bass, Return of the King. It had a wonderful song, Where There's a Whip, There's a Way. I can't remember which one that was in. It was in one of the two of them, which kind of stuck in my head. Of course, you have the 2000s Peter Jackson and the Hobbit follow-up. You have a Swedish version, a TV version, a Finnish TV version, and in the Soviet Union had several versions of it. There have been adaptations on radio. In fact, the BBC had a 81 version where the actor Ian, who played Bilbo in the movies that we just watched, was actually Frodo in the radio version. There have been some stage version attempts, and yes, Courtney, for your enjoyment pleasure, they were musicals.
Well, where there's a whip, there's a way. I'm signing up. So.
That's what I'm saying. So, and there was one in Ohio. Cincinnati Cincinnati did it, and it was really bad. London tried to put on a musical version, and it was considered one of the worst musicals ever attempts in.
Where is there footage of this?
I don't know. I didn't have time to go search that up and find it, but you can try.
We must throw this ring in Mount Doom. We must throw
where
it
there's
into
a whip,
Mount Doom.
There's a way. And then apparently there was a parody version in 2009 on stage in LA. So there have been Lord of the Rings, the musical. Actually, that's not what it was called. It was called something with, of course, with an exclamation point, which, every musical has to have that. So, so as you know, The Hobbit, the other versions, we had The Hobbit come out in the series starting in 2012, and there's currently several TV versions. There's several running right now. I think there's another animated version going right now, and then there it is, The Lord of the Rings. Is that real? I didn't even look that up, but if that's really the version,
I'm looking at a picture of stage Gollum right now, or Smeagol, or whoever he is, whatever. Smeagol. I don't understand, but it's a lot.
Yeah, I didn't have time to go and spend. Yeah, so we'll move on from the
disaster. It was Lord of the Rings.
Oh my god!
Hold on, the title was Lord of the Rings: A Musical Tale on Stage! !
Yeah, no, there was 3 different versions. They weren't all the same versions that got done. So one of them had a different name. It was like The Return! ! Or something. The Fellowship. It might have been The Fellowship ! I'm not sure. But Anyway, I haven't brought out the cast in this one because there's so many people to talk about, and we can go on forever and ever and ever on that. I'll just name a few names that are notable. Elijah Wood, of course, we just talked about his excellent performance in The Last Witch Hunter. Orlando Bloom, who everybody adores. Cate Blanchett, who we talked about in The Gift recently. Christopher Lee, The Wicker Man, and of course we've talked about him a million times. The legendary Ian McKellen. Billy Boyd, Ian Holm, Liv Tyler, Sean Astin, who forever in this family will be remembered for his death in Stranger Things and making my child cry for hours after. If you did not see Stranger Things, you will have to watch Sean Astin's
Spoiler
death.
alert.
Yeah, sorry. Spoiler alert there, but that's what he's known for in this family, aside from Samwise Gamgee's.
Rudy.
Yeah, he's in a million things. I think he was in Goonies too. He's in a million things. But
and his father is Gomez Adams.
Is he really?
Yes.
I did not know that. That's fantastic. Well, we had quite the Stranger Things had a big effect on our family. Let's just put it that way. I'll leave it at that. So, but he's been everywhere. And there are a million other characters I could pull out, but that would take forever again. Finally, I just want to mention the hero's journey real quick to bring it to witchcraft and witch movies.
What movies?
Yeah, I'm not falling for that. I'm not stepping in that one right now. I see you, Richard-Lael. I see you. And I raise you one. So this is an epic journey movie. And during this time, we had a lot of epic journey movies coming out. This was released when Harry Potter was released. And Harry Potter is essentially the Joseph Campbell's hero journey. And we had a number of other ones. We have Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Epic fantasy became fairly popular during this period of time for magical type movies, which is really interesting, coming on the heels of other witch movies. But what I just want to bring out here is that we don't see a lot of male witches. Nobody here is really a male witch. I guess we have wizards, but witch movies tend to be about female coming of age and female empowerment stories, allegorically or directly. Usually those similar stories, when men are involved, boys are involved, we find the hero's journey. And that's what this is. This is a hero's journey. And we see this in, we see trends where they get really popular. So similar movies would be Star Wars. That launched in the late 70s into the early 80s. It launched the popularity of these epic fantasy movies that featured the hero's journey. And again, these hero's journeys are always involve magic and mystery and mystical stuff. And they focus on a male coming of age, usually having some problem with the father, finding a false father, having to battle through it and triumph over it. We see it over and over again. It's a canned story that we see over and over again. And that's usually where we find mystical men in these type of stories, mostly, with any prominence. So it's different. It's a type of story that we see in witchcraft films and we see in magical films, but it's very specific. And here we see it again. And this was popular at the time. You know, the witchcraft movies that embodied and talked about female empowerment and female coming of age, those were trending down, while these movies were trending up. And we see this over and over again for the past 4 or 5 decades. It's very interesting. You can read all about it in my book because I go through this. But this is an epic story. It's a Joseph Campbell hero's journey and an epic fantasy where we watch Frodo, who's our center character here, who's taking the journey.
Or dildo, depending on your perspective.
Right. And
that is a different film, by the way.
It could be the musical that I've discovered.
John Astin and Sean Astin there.
There he is.
Fellowship ! is a musical parody stage play based on the Fellowship of the Ring. The play follows the major events of the first part of Tolkien's story and the first part of Peter Jackson's movies. It reimagines Bilbo Baggins as an aged Catskill Jewish man, the Balrog as a sleep-deprived lounge-singing diva, the battle on Weathertop as a West Side Story gang-style gang fight, and Rivendell as a Scientologist stronghold, primarily due to the similarity of names between Elrond and L. Ron Hubbard. Part live. Wait, this is my favorite part. Hold on. Part live action, part puppet show, and part animation. The show removes or summarizes parts of the story that would slow it down. While played for laughs, the music features original compositions instead of parodies, and the song styles range from cheesy 1980s rock to sleazy cabaret numbers, according to Wikipedia. Like, where was I? Where was I when this was happening? I want to see Fellowship. There it is!
This was only done in LA, and it was done for a few years on stage in, I think it was 2009, and then again maybe in 2013 or something. It's the only place this play, as far as I know, has been staged.
It's time for a revival. Hallelujah.
Right.
I think so. I'd pay good money for that in a
Right.
heartbeat.
Take my money.
Yeah.
Once again.
I'm sure there was also a porn parody where Frodo really was called Bilbo.
Yeah,
We won't go through the other names. We will
Here
not.
I go
We will
to
not.
the Google again. Let me get myself on a watch list while you talk. Hold on. Uh-oh.
I'll
There's a
go
face.
first because I admit I was kind of tired last night and I struggled to stay awake. It was so hard. I like the character. I like the character. I like the stories. But when you're really tired, you can't do it. It just went on and on. I fall asleep. I'd wake up and they're trudging through the forest, and I go to sleep. And I wake up and they're trudging through the forest, and I go and they're trudging. It's like, did I miss anything? I don't think so. I don't know if I was asleep for 5 minutes, 5 seconds, 5 hours, but it just kept going. And I was just because I had not seen it in so long. I'm like, I have to stay awake. I had a Black Phillip in each hand, trying to tell me to stay awake, and I couldn't. So I can't wait to hear the whole storyline. Thank you, Richard-Lael and Heather, for the thing going. Well, they went through the forest and they're kind of pretty, and I like Hobbit hair. That's it. That's all I got. That is all I got. So you guys take over from here. I'm gonna hide this.
This is very shocking, but because I do love a Quest movie, I wholeheartedly agree with Patti. It was hard for me to watch. Like, I've seen it, but it's such. Hear me out first. Relax, Jason. It's Heather. Oh my God. All right. Judging like he was a bear, both of you.
Hold on a second.
Okay, yeah. Here we go. I've seen it before. I did not see it like when it came out. I feel threatened. I did not see it when it came out in the movie theater. I've seen it multiple times. The first one. I haven't seen the other two. But it's, for someone with ADHD as bad as mine, it's so hard to sit through unless I'm ready and willing to make the time commitment to sit down and watch it. In theory, I love it. I love the story. I love the characters. It's beautiful to look at. The music is the best. I love it. I love. I love it in bits and pieces. I love the messages. I think there's such good like one-liners in it that are inspiring and beautiful, and like the story is great. But if I could watch it in like 40-minute increments, then I might be better off than trying to sit and watch 3 hours. So I have watched it recently within the last few years because I watched it with Nathan. But even Nathan, who loves it, I have been bugging for a week to get him to watch it with me. And he was like, yeah, but it's 3 hours long and I can't sit here for that long. And I don't want to sit here for that long. So I put it on today to try to rewatch it. And I literally had it on as background noise because I could not focus on it at all. But then every once in a while, like I'd glance over and, oh my God, it's beautiful and things are happening and it's gorgeous. Or like, you know, they say, I literally was not invested in the story at all this watch through. And still some of the lines I caught with my just out of the corner of my consciousness, and I almost started to cry because they were so beautiful. So I like it. I love it in theory, but it's very difficult to sit through and watch.
Much better said than I. I agree wholeheartedly. You just had better words, more words, because I love the beauty of it. I love the look of everybody, whoever did the makeup and the costuming and the characters and how they were created. I didn't read the book, so I can't compare it to that, but I thought that was well done and well thought out, and just look at that beauty, just beauty. But to stay with it without naps was impossible.
I think it has to be something that's like prepared for, and like you have your friends over and you prepare snacks and you have your blankets and you have like whatever ready, and this is what we're doing today, and I've mentally prepared for it, and then I could sit down and watch it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just going to jump in there with something that Colin said, is that you have to be in the mood for an epic journey. And I think that's something that he captured that you don't find in, even though Harry Potter was 7 movies or 8 movies, and Lion King, another epic journey, and all of these, even Star Wars, the feel of it was not epic. The feel of this is epic. It's slow. It moves in an epic way that a lot of these epic journeys don't move in that way. They move fast enough where you get through it. They cut to the chase, essentially. This one does not. And you have to be ready for it. You have to be prepared and comfortable and cozy. I think that's right.
Right.
Just be glad that the Tom Bombadil scenes were cut out. We'd still be watching the first one today after it came out in 2001.
We were just talking about that at dinner.
And in the books, I think the journey takes years. In the movies, it feels like it takes a few months. In the books, it takes years. So Peter Jackson did us all a favor. These could have been much, much longer.
I started watching this film 84 years ago.
It's been 84 years. I can still smell the fresh paint.
I did actually start watching it in the morning. And then I would pause it, and then I would drink tea, and then I would go for a walk, and then I would unpause it, and then I would sit there and go, oh, wow, I still have 3 more hours to go. And then I would sit and I would pause it, and then I would walk around, and then I would look at some books, look at some pornographies.
Dildo Baggins, obviously.
Lord of the Dance. And then I finally, the last hour, I said, okay, I can make it. I can do it. I can do it. I did it. And it's beautiful. And it is so well acted. And the entire time I thought of Jason Menke, and I thought, you know what? I understand why this film means so much to Jason Menke. And I have to say, I loved every second of it. It is long. It is really, really long. I will never watch it again. But it's beautiful. I loved it. And I can understand Jason.
And I do love this movie. I was there the night it premiered at the theater. I remember sitting, my wife and I, we were not husband and wife then. We were just friends. And we were sitting there and we were so excited. And we watched a lot of our friends come into that theater too. We didn't know they were going to be there that night because this was an event in the pagan world. I think that people don't realize how important Lord of the Rings was in early paganism. If you were a pagan in the 1960s, which is really sort of when it, I wouldn't say exploded, but became something in the United States, there weren't a whole lot of books. And people read the Lord of the Rings books because they assumed the hobbits were like super close to nature and it was magical. There was a pagan retreat center called Lothlorien in Indiana for a very, very long time. I mean, pagans loved Lord of the Rings. They just went together. So it wasn't a big surprise that all those people were there at the theater that night. and my wife and I both love fantasy fiction, and to see this movie, to see a big budget fantasy movie had never been done before. There was science fiction, certainly, but not sword and sorcery, fantasy type films. And to see it done so well, to us, I don't think we cried while we watched it, but we were riveted the entire way through. I think I saw it 4 times in the theater because we went back several times. And when they promised a trailer for the Two Towers in March at the end of the movie, of course we went back just to watch 2 new minutes of the greatest trilogy in the history of film. I could go on and on about this movie forever. One last story about that showing, though, the first showing. We were watching it in the movie theater, and then towards the end, when Frodo and Sam are trying to get away from the orcs, the film broke in the theater, and the lights instantly came on, and we all looked around like, what? And we knew it was just one part of 3. So some of us just thought they were ending it on a very serious cliffhanger. And then somebody had to come into the theater and say, there's been an accident. And so, we can fix it, but it'll be 20 minutes and then we'll finish the film, but we won't play the credits because we have to get the next group in. So that was my first experience watching Lord of the Rings at the theater.
I wanted to bring up, Bevan said it's LOTR and witches is like going to the Renfest. And I have actually, that was my thought. I was actually going to go there. It does remind me of the Ren Fair. And I remember I went when I was 22 to the Renaissance Fair. And I was a very closeted young man who was dancing in the ballet and singing in the opera and doing musical theater, but completely heterosexual. And I decided with a friend that we were going to go down to a Renaissance fair. And I decided as a heterosexual, I was going to wear a pink ruffled shirt. And we go to the Renaissance fair, and there's a couple of fellows who are of my persuasion, but I wouldn't have admitted it then. And they were very, very flirty with me. And so we went to the canteen or whatever, they have the Renaissance Fair food. And I thought, oh, you know what I really want right now? I really want a chocolate covered banana. No, actually, I don't want that. Oh, maybe I'll just do something nice, like a drumstick. Nope, I'm not going to do that either because of the optics. So you know what? I'm going to have an apple. I'm going to have a very heterosexual apple. That's what I will have, is an apple.
An apple at Ren Fair?
Because I didn't want anything that would be suggested.
The turkey legs.
I was very heterosexual in my pink ruffled shirt with my friends who were also from the ballet. I was very, very, very straight.
I think a turkey leg is for all persuasions. There's no way.
The Ren
right.
Fair.
There's no way to look any type of way other than gluttonous when you're chowing down on that turkey leg, and man, is it worth it.
We are all Henry VIII when we eat the turkey leg at the Renaissance
There's grease
Festival.
everywhere, like strings of turkey hanging from your teeth. Nobody cares. There's nothing good looking about it. Or maybe they do. That's right. My search history, I can't look that up. So
now that you looked up dildo pageant.
I did not. I looked up Lord of the Rings porn, and I was uncomfortable very quickly, and I already had to delete my search history. So because what I saw burned holes in my eyes. So turkey legs don't discriminate. That's right.
They don't.
The Dragon Con in Atlanta does still have a Tolkien track last I saw. I haven't been in a few years, but I believe they still do. Dragon Con, if you don't know, is a major, one of the biggest pop culture conferences in the world. And I think it attracts about 75 to 80,000 people into the downtown Atlanta every Labor Day. If you have not been to it, it is something to behold for sure. And I believe they do still have a Tolkien track along with Star Wars and all the other big fandoms, Star Trek, etc. But I'm gonna jump in real quick because I have a different perspective on this. I love the movies. I'm with Jason. I don't watch. I haven't watched them in a while, but I get absorbed right into it. I don't get bored at all. And I could watch them probably all three back to back and sit there. But that's maybe my film nerd thing. I don't know. But I also, I grew up with Star Wars, and because I had a dad who was really fascinated by it and a lot of sci-fi, and I liked fantasy. But then this movie came out, and I had two little boys growing up who were growing up, not at this point, but eventually obsessed with Lord of the Rings. And I don't know if they saw the movies first or they read the books. Both read the books in elementary school. And they read all of the books. Then they read the Hobbit books and the Hobbit. And then they read other Tolkien books and everything. They were into Star Wars. They were in, they liked that stuff, but it's fantasy is everything to them. My oldest child is now watching Game of Thrones. I mean, that was it. And I even said to him, I said, we're doing this tonight. If you want to get on and call me out, because he passed what I was watching it earlier just to refresh my mind. He's like, oh, he knows all the names of everybody. They are absolutely, both of them. They have all the Lego toys. I took out some of their little Lego stuff. Yeah. We've got all the little Lego guys. Legolas. Here's Frodo Baggins or Bilbo. I don't know which one he is, but there he is with his little ring. See, he's going to turn evil. They have, the books, everything. There was the pop figures. Lord of the Rings was their way of life. It was obsessed with everything to do with it because they love the fantasy. And with that said, the oldest, my partner's daughter, we tried to make her watch it, and halfway through the first movie, she's snoring over in the corner. So so then there's that.
That is for her. For her.
Well, but the youngest, because together we have four, our youngest, who is 17, has just for the first time picked up the books, is now about a quarter of the way through the first book, and will not watch the movies until the books have been read. That's by her own decision. But so I kind of have grown up around an obsession with Lord of the Rings because of my two children, and it's everything to them, and it has been. So I'm happy for that. I couldn't be happier with having children obsessed with the Lord of the Rings and have read the books. So I'm good with that.
That's amazing, actually. I could not in youth read that. No.
I want to watch them all. Like, I have every intention. Nathan asks me all the time. This started over COVID. He wanted to watch all three, and that's when we watched it the first time. But it's such a commitment in my brain that unless I'm ready and willing to dedicate the whole day to it, like, I can't even wrap my mind around starting it. And I've said this like to people because people are shocked that I haven't seen them because I love fantasy, but my thing is that, like, I don't want to start because once I start, I won't stop. Like, once I'm into it, that will be it. And my to-do list is never ending. So I feel like I can't cut myself enough slack to just be able to sit down and enjoy them for a whole day. And that's frustrating because I know that I would love them.
You should try to do them. Try to do the movies like once a week, do one and then let it go for a little bit and stuff, because by the time you get into the second one, when those trees are running from the fire in the second one, I thought that was I saw that one in the movies with my brother, and we started laughing. I'll never forget that moment where the trees are fighting back. I'm like, yeah, this was awesome watching those trees.
Wait, is this a killing tree reference?
What?
This is what inspired the killing trees.
There's
Yes.
killing trees. For sure.
Ents.
She's going to watch it now.
They're ents. Anyway, there's moments that are just so the first one is sort of the beginning of the journey. You have to get to the other ones where they start really, where you start seeing more action and more stuff going on. It's epic.
The second and third movies are better than the first movie. And they are a lot better than the first movie. You can see that Peter Jackson is sort of figuring out exactly what he wants to do and how he wants the films to look. And then he really hits his stride in The Two Towers, which is the best of the three films. And if you're bored watching Fellowship,
There's an end.
I can understand that, but you will not be bored watching The Two Towers. I mean, it just rolls.
No.
It's a very, very epic film. It's fantastic. It is The Empire Strikes Back of Lord of the Rings.
All right, I'm sold. I'm probably gonna put it on tonight then.
And it is, and the first film is like the introduction. It sets up. So of course it's going to be a little slower because you got to get the characters. You got to, I mean, that's what it is. It's saying, okay, now here comes the journey. That's the first film. And that's why it's a little bit harder to swallow perhaps. But yeah, you got to get to the other ones. The end, I mean, there's a couple scenes in the very last one where you're like, oh yeah.
My problem is that I feel like I've retained nothing from the first one, and it's frustrating because I want to retain it all and I want to get into it, and I just like, I love people are in the comments are talking about Game of Thrones like being fantasy. I have a Game of Thrones tattoo. I'm obsessed with Game of Thrones. Heather, you have a sword. I have a sword. I have a Game of Thrones sword in the other room. Like, I'm obsessed. I can get into it once I'm into it, that's it. Like, I can't, when I read a book or if I turn on Game of Thrones, there's no watching one episode of Game of Thrones. I'm watching a whole season in a sit down. Like, I literally will stay up all night because I can't turn it off. And what? Sorry.
No, I interrupted you.
I was just saying that, like, that's like when I read a book, when I get into a book, just if there's a sequel to it, I'll say to myself, oh, like, I'll pick that up tomorrow, or I'll read that next week. But if I stay up till 2 a.m. to finish, and if it ends on any semblance of like, I'm not satisfied, I pick up the second book right away and I stay awake all night. And I'm just too tired. And I haven't been not tired enough to commit to this. And it's sad. It's so sad. I want to watch it.
I think Fellowship too really takes its time and moves very, very slow, especially in the first hour. And it's something that you either love or it makes you want to fall asleep. I love watching Gandalf roll in on his cart, that beautiful Howard Shore music playing in the background, this completely idyllic place. If I'm having a bad day, I can watch those scenes there, and it just brings me great joy. I think we talked about this on another episode because I get really emotional talking about that because it's just so perfectly done. But I can also see people being bored because you're watching an old man you don't know, like, make a horse go while Elijah Wood is running around barefoot in the background.
The weird part is the first half of the movie keeps my attention. The second half of the movie is where I'm lost. Maybe I need to watch Fellowship ! And then
yes,
I'll
we
get
all need to watch Fellowship together.
The key thing for you, the Fellowship. The key thing is just know who the characters are. Is all you need to know going into the next movie is who the characters are and who's going on the journey. And that's pretty much what this movie sets up, is why they're going, who they are, and why they're going on this journey. Then start the second movie and you're good to go.
It's a little like playing chess, if I may, because if you know what the pieces are and you know how they move, then you can effectively play a game even if you're terrible at it. And I think that's kind of the way that it sets with me, as it feels like chess.
Mm-hmm. But I was going to say, is a Game of Thrones, someone was also saying that Game of Thrones, I mentioned it, several people have mentioned it. Game of Thrones is a totally different feel.
Right.
It's a fantasy, it's not, it does have the hero's journey in it. I would say Jon Snow is taking the hero's journey in Game of Thrones, but it's like a bumpy road everywhere you go. This is a smooth, epic journey. It's a classic one. It's different. Game of Thrones is high fantasy. It's not really epic fantasy, is what I would say. It's different. And it keeps you, and it keeps grabbing you and poking at you and pulling you in and letting you go and making you angry and making you fall in love. It's a totally different feel. This one, it's like you get on the wagon with Gandalf and then you're on the journey with them for the slow parts and the hard parts. It's a totally different feel. But both are awesome.
I
won't hear anything about it otherwise.
Something I will say about that comparison, though, is that Game of Thrones, which is one of my all-time favorite series ever, I had to watch the first 2 episodes probably, like, no exaggeration, 5 times before I could move forward. I couldn't grasp it. And everyone kept saying, oh my God, it's so great. And you have to keep going. And, oh my God, it's so great. You have to keep going. And it literally took me having nothing to do for an entire weekend to get into it. And then that was it. Then I didn't have cable. I didn't have HBO, and it was still running. So but I'm running out to the store to buy the DVD box sets. I had the cable people coming the next day to install my cable, and I could not wait for the cable people to come. And I was getting HBO for Game of Thrones. I couldn't wait, and I had to go to the store and buy the Blu-ray of season whatever 2 or 3, because and then I was like, oh well, I'll get through this in a day, so I should buy both. And then I did, and then I kept buying them, and it was such a problem. But it was like once it clicked and I had the time, that was it. I lived there. That was it.
Wow.
And I've watched it so many times now.
It holds up.
There it is.
There it is. All right.
so
Well,
jealous.
before we move over to Game of Thrones, we're still on this one. Do we have any quotes, Miss Courtney, from this
We do.
fine, sleepy film?
Just so that everyone, full disclosure, I took them from IMDb. Because there were some I had in my head a couple that I wanted to pull, but there was just a lot to write down. So I was having trouble paying attention. They're in the whole first part there's the whole thing, the explanation of the rings, but they were all of them deceived, for another ring was made in the land of Mordor, in the fires of Mount Doom. The Dark Lord Sauron forged in a secret master ring to control all others, and into this ring he poured his cruelty, his malice, and his will to dominate all life. One ring to rule them all. And then the whole conversation about breakfast and second breakfast was my favorite. It said, we don't stop till nightfall. And Pippin said, well, what about breakfast? And Aragorn said, you've already had it. And Pippin said, well, we've had one. Yes. What about second breakfast? And Merry says, I don't think he knows about second breakfast, Pip. And Pip says, well, what about elevensies, luncheon, afternoon tea, dinner, supper? He knows about them, doesn't he? And I'm like, that's me eating all day long. And then, of course, we have to have the one does not simply walk into Mordor, because that is, I use that meme constantly. A wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to. Go back, Sam. I'm going to Mordor alone. Of course you are, and I'm coming with you. Like, I'm emotional just thinking about it. I love them. Sam says, this is it. Frodo says, this is what? And Sam says, if I take one more step, it'll be the farthest away from home I've ever been. And Frodo says, come on, Sam. Remember what Bilbo used to say. It's dangerous business, Frodo, going out your door. You step onto the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might get swept off to. Then, of course, the famous you shall not pass.
You shall not pass.
And then I included this one because this is just how I feel today. So I was like, this is accurate, and I appreciate it. Bilbo says, I'm old, Gandalf. I know I don't look it, but I'm beginning to feel it in my heart. I feel thin, sort of stretched, like butter scraped over too much bread. I need a holiday, a very long holiday, and I don't expect I shall return. In fact, I mean not to. Frodo says, I know what I must do. It's just I'm afraid to do it. And aren't we all? And then the last one, the one that literally I almost, oh no, sorry, not the same one. My last one is Bilbo. Bilbo says, you'll keep an eye on Frodo, won't you? And Gandalf says, 2 eyes, as often as I can spare them. And I like that one. But the I'm going to Mordor alone, of course you are, and I'm coming with you, made me like sob choke as I was not paying attention to the movie. But I heard it, and it was beautiful, and I loved it. So that's that. I want to hug. I want to hug one of them.
Thank you. Hugs for all. Thank you. That was beautiful quotes, and it doesn't matter where you got them.
Thank you.
Jason, Mr. Mankey, do we have a Mankey minute of this masterpiece?
It's really hard to make fun of a movie that I really love. And also, I will say that we do things on this show sometimes that make absolutely no sense to me. Like talking about Lord of the Rings in March. We should be reviewing Mardi Gras related witchcraft movies this time of year. Movies like Teen Witch Goes to Mardi Gras, The Killing Tree Eats a King Cake, or The Witch Who Came to Mardi Gras by Way of the Sea and then threw up on your friend's shoes, but she did take off her top and get some Mardi Gras beads. But no, somehow we ended up reviewing a bloody Christmas movie in March. My brain is confused, and it's not just because I'm drinking wine. You might ask, why is Lord of the Rings a Christmas movie? Well, it came out December 19th, which is practically the winter solstice. I was wearing a Santa hat that night, and I regret nothing because I looked foolish, but I still regret nothing. And of course, also, many of the themes in Lord of the Rings are very Christmassy, which is a point I will elaborate on. Let's start with the obvious one. Gandalf is clearly and totally Wizard Santa. He has a long white beard. He's nice to everyone except the naughty. All of that screams Santa Claus. And I bet you saw this coming, but the hobbits are clearly based off of Santa's elves. They are short, they like pipes, and their names are even elven-like. One of the hobbits is named Mary, for crying out loud. Clearly the hobbits are meant to be Santa's elves. And of course, some of you are like, what about the other elves, Jason? Be quiet. I didn't ask you. And I don't want you ruining my theory. Gollum is clearly Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. He's the creature no one wanted and no one loved. The only difference is that this version of Rudolph didn't have Herbie the Dentist or Yukon Cornelius to keep him on the up and up. Lord of the Rings is about friendship and how friendships preserve the Christmas season, which is why it's called Fellowship of the Ring. Also, who is Saruman in your little Christmas analogy, Jason? Obviously, he's the guy who owns Gimbals in A Miracle on 34th Street, and the orcs represent non-union labor being brought in to destroy Christmas. And Sauron is the all-seeing eye of the credit agencies, ready to limit your Christmas fun or hold you accountable for spending too much during the holidays. Other analogies that only sort of make sense. Gimli has the innocence of Buddy the Elf from the movie Elf, and Legolas is a smooth operator like Frosty the Snowman. Aragorn and Arwen are the two star-crossed lovers in every Lifetime movie, or they were the prototype for that or something. I got desperate towards the end of this piece. I bet Aragorn owns a Christmas tree farm, and Arwen is a high-priced attorney when she's not all mopey about her human boyfriend. I saw all 3 Lord of the Rings movies over the holiday season, and to this day, my wife and I rewatch them every December, and we do the extended cuts too, because they are awesome, and investing 45 hours of your life into 3 movies sounds completely fair to me. So yes, these are clearly Christmas movies. I even have parts of the musical score on my holiday playlist. I look forward to doing the 2 Towers on this show come December.
Yay!
Beautiful.
I think that therein is my problem, is I've never treated them like a Christmas movie, so that's what I should do.
Every December, probably after Christmas, but before New Year's, we rewatch the movies, and the extended versions are hard to rewatch. Those are like 2 nights for each film, but it's totally worth it. It's totally worth it.
I didn't understand, Jason. Maybe you can help me in this point. There was a point when Zach Baggins, is that his name? He's they're fighting in the caves or whatever, and then they're all sort of looking at him like he farted or something. They rip open his shirt and he looks like a glitter gay disco diva. What was that?
He was wearing a suit of armor called Mithril, and it stopped the orc blade from going into his chest because they all thought he was dead. So they take off the shirt, and then they see the chainmail that he's wearing, which keeps Frodo safe. Also, that entire scene is amazing. As soon as they go to the caves, boom, movie like picks up hard. Fantastic. God, I love that so much.
It does pick up in the cave.
Can we circle back to Rudolph the creature that nobody wanted. That hurt to hear, honestly.
It's true, right? I mean, we've all watched that special. They're so mean to him.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
I might be working on a Christmas themed tarot deck right now, so it's in my brain.
All right. Well, that is, now that we are all experts on the Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, it is time to vote. I don't even know what time it is. I guess it is that time. It is time to vote. Wands up and wands down. Now, because I'm on my phone, I cannot see the people. So
I'll read them.
So you could read them. So, Lord of the Rings, everything we said, whatever we said.
Oh, we're all unanimous.
As we should be. It's great.
Okay, so, and again, I don't know what everybody else is voting. No, just because I slept does not mean I did not appreciate every moment of the beauty.
Wands up and horns up from Kelvin. Wands up from Christy. Colin would love a movie version of Rudolph the Creature No One Wanted. So would I. Robert Hicks says my wizard staff is up high. Wands up from Mickey.
Wands up, wands up.
Wands up, wands up. Yeah, everybody. Wands up. It's. I think
there's a wand, there's a way.
I feel like no one. Have we ever had a movie where not one single person has voted down or neutral?
So.
I don't know. We may have. I don't know.
Well, obviously the Killing Tree, everyone voted up.
Aside from the Killing Tree.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know that we have. We've usually at least had a neutral.
Right.
Almost always that I can remember. So that's amazing for a movie that, two of us slept through.
I was awake. I just wasn't looking at the television.
The only reason that I'm really voting it as highly as I am is because I love Jason and I love Heather and I know how much that it means to them. And I enjoyed it, but knowing how much they love it made me love it all the more.
Aww.
And I'm happy to say that Sting did not glow blue once during this entire set here that we've done. So that means we are safe and comfortable. So I just wanted to let you guys know it did not glow blue. We're good.
I would say before you declare anyone safe,
would give this a wands down.
Also, before you declare us safe and comfortable, I'd like to point out that your clown has been staring at me the entire podcast. So
look at him. He's just lounging back here looking at you.
He's been like peering at me. I noticed him. It has to be a visual clip at some point. I saw him and I was like,
oh man. So what movie are we watching next week? Does anybody know?
Yes, next week is a 1960 British film. We're going back in time to Horror Hotel, or it's also called City of the Dead. We're going back to horror too. It's a British, again, it's a British film. I believe it's black and white, 1960. It's really going back in time, doing nice horror film, classic horror.
All right, I'm going to get ready to curse Heather again. Can't wait.
Yeah,
I started watching the day unwittingly, so it's definitely a film.
It's great.
It's a film. Does anybody have anything coming up that they want to talk about before we go? Any conferences, appearances? Courtney?
I'm gonna have to start doing some butthole magic because Black Phillip has a butthole again.
The same one?
Yes, and a leg hole.
What are you doing to your Phillip?
No, I'm being called
to your goats.
I'm being called to do butthole magic. I don't do anything. They just live in here and then grow a butthole.
Yep.
And only
what happens when Courtney's looking up porn Fellowship of the Ring online.
Oh no, Dildo Baggins got him. Oh, poor Black Phillip. I'm so sorry.
I have to repair him again.
Wow.
I want to say Jason. I'm going to see Jason in 2 weeks now in Minneapolis at Paginnicon. It begins on the 21st, I believe.
Yep, March 21st through the 23rd.
Yep. And I'll be doing some doll workshops and showing off Patty's book. So I'm really excited about that.
I'm so excited. I wish I was there.
Next year,
I'm going to be in Ohio, nothing in March. Well, stuff in March, but private. April, beginning of April, I'm going to be at Firelands Paracon, which is in Sandusky, Ohio. It'll be my first time there. And then the end of April, I'm going to be in North Carolina doing a Crescent Moon Magical Week, a whole witchy weekend of workshops and stuff with me. If anybody wants to come, check it out. And Dollcraft, my book, you could do pre-orders already. My beautiful publisher, Heather, and editor, and I'm so excited about this book. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. I don't know how you've done 10 or 11 of them, Jason. I don't know how. But yes, Dollcraft. So then we're going to have some haunted doll movies coming out if we can, please.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So, anybody else have anything coming up? We're all home. All right, what time is it? It is time to cackle because it says so on the screen. So, witches, get ready. Take a deep breath. 1, 2, 3.